Getting into that habit of mothering your partner never feels good. It breaks down relationships. It destroys that romance and attraction and polarity. And to be honest, it usually doesn't feel good for him either. So in this video, I'm going to talk about why we fall into that mothering trap so easily, how this destroys relationships, the difference between mothering and nurturing your partner, because there is a clear difference, and of course, most importantly, how to stop mothering your man. Hello friends, welcome back. If you're new here, my name's Jillz and I help women step into their power, tap into their divine feminine, and become their best selves. So if that's something you want to do, you should probably subscribe and stick around. Okay, so mothering our man. This is a highly requested video topic, and that's because so many of us tend to fall into this mothering type of relationship dynamic, where we feel like we become our partner's mother and he becomes our child. Maybe not at first, right? Like at first things are good, there's that romance there and attraction, but then eventually once you guys get in a really committed relationship, and especially once you guys start living together, things can sometimes change. Okay, so first, what is mothering our man? Like, what does that even mean in the context of a romantic relationship, this term mothering? It's when we get in the habit of trying to manage and or control our partner, where we treat him like he's not capable, where we treat him like he's a little child, not an adult man, and where we feel like we need to tend to his every single need. This might show up as you telling him how he needs to do things, or what he needs to change, or what specific diet he should follow, or you constantly reminding him of all of the things, all of the tasks that he needs to do, or of that haircut next week, or even just taking over his to-do list and handling it all for him. This mothering behavior can show up in many ways, but the underlying energy there is that he is not capable, he is not good enough, and he can't handle his stuff, essentially. And this mothering dynamic completely destroys relationships. In romantic relationship, what creates that romance and passion and attraction is polarity. One partner being more in their feminine energy and one partner being more in their masculine energy. And you can think of these energies as like a magnet, right? They're drawn to each other. But what happens when you start to mother your man and you start being more controlling and pushy is that you actually tend to start moving into the masculine position. And I know that sounds confusing because we think of the mother as feminine, but the mother actually has to have both feminine and masculine energy to fulfill that role. The feminine side of mothering is the loving, supportive, nurturing, cuddling side of being a mother. The masculine side of being a mother is the managing, directing, protecting, rule-setting part of being a mother. So when we mother our man in the context of like a romantic relationship, this usually means us moving into our masculine energy. And then that passion starts to fade. You start to lose that attraction to him because there's no more polarity and you start to see him like a child. And he ends up not feeling very good around you because you don't make him feel like a confident, capable man. You make him feel inadequate, and he doesn't make you feel like a loved and cherished woman. He makes you feel stressed and burnt out and a little unsafe, like maybe you can't trust him. And he might still love you very much, just like he still loves his mother, but he won't feel that deep romantic attraction to you, just like you won't feel that to him. No man is attracted to their mother, just like no woman is attracted to their child. So that dynamic doesn't create a healthy romantic relationship. But sometimes people get confused about how mothering our partner is different from nurturing our partner, but there is a pretty clear difference there, so let me explain. Nurturing is being caring and thoughtful and supportive. Mothering is feeling like you need to manage them. Nurturing is being encouraging and loving. Mothering is being a little bit more nagging, nitpicking, directing, controlling, maybe even doubting and judging him. Nurturing stems from feelings of love and abundance. Mothering stems from feelings of fear and anxiety and a lack of safety. Nurturing is giving in a healthy way but still prioritizing our own well-being. Mothering is putting their man above their well-being. Nurturing is understanding that he has his own life. He has his own opinions, his own thoughts, his own way of doing things, and that he is in charge of his life. Mothering is trying to take away that independence and autonomy. Nurturing is saying, I know you can do it. Mothering is saying, here's how you need to do it. Nurturing gives him the space to step up and handle his responsibilities, and mothering is when we try to do it for him or try to get overly involved. To make it simple, mothering either goes back to this energy of trying to tell him what to do or managing him or directing him in some way, or smothering him with all that you're trying to do for him. Now, before we talk about how to stop mothering him, I think it's really important to understand where this behavior comes from, because the better we can understand why things happen, the better we can avoid them in the future. And there are several reasons, but there tends to be a general theme. And I know everyone will say that the reason this happens is because our partner starts acting like a little baby. He acts like a child, he can't handle his responsibilities. And you might be totally right, or you might be totally wrong, but that doesn't matter because you don't have to act like his mother in response. And at its real core, not all, but a lot of that mothering behavior comes back to us wanting to feel a sense of control and wanting to maintain that control over our life. So some reasons why we might fall into that mothering trap. The first one is if you're just like a naturally type A type of person, you tend to really value organization and staying on top of things and consequently usually, wanting to be more in control, then this dynamic can kind of shift into your relationship after you start getting like very comfortable with each other. Number two, we love our partner. We want the best for them and we obviously want them to reach their highest potential. And it hurts us to see them not doing that. Like it literally pains us. So instead we start to take it into our own hands and get overly involved in his life. Again, coming back to this feeling of control. Number three, we can also start to mother our man if we feel the need to prove to him that we are the perfect partner and that we are irreplaceable to him. We cook, we clean, we work, we remind him of the dry cleaning and his commitments and his appointments and whatever. We lay out his clothes for him, etc. And we're trying to be the perfect partner. This again comes back to control. If we are the perfect partner, then he can never leave. Obviously, nobody wants their partner to leave them, but that is the risk we take when we get into a relationship and when we fall in love. He could break our heart and break up with us. But the funny thing is that you trying to be the perfect partner to him and handling his every need and trying to manage his life is actually going to be the thing that drives you further away from him in the long run. And fourth thing, if you have issues with trusting people, then it's going to be harder for you to trust your partner to handle his stuff, even if he is totally trustworthy. And so then you'll get involved when you don't need to. And again, it comes back to control. Fifth thing, if we grew up in an environment where we felt like we had to, for example, take care of our siblings all the time, or mother or parent our own parents, or manage their emotions or anything like that, where you felt like you are responsible for everything and for the household staying together, you might revert back to this tendency now in your romantic relationship and start to mother him. And lastly is if we are just naturally a very, very nurturing person, or if we're more inclined to put other people's needs above our own. Now, nurturing and mothering are different, like I talked about, but if that's you, if you just have like a very nurturing personality, that's a beautiful thing. That's not a bad thing, but that can quickly overstep into mothering territory if you're not careful. Now, there may be some other reasons for why you end up mothering your man, but those are like the big daddy ones. And a lot of times it does come back to control. But the problem is that once you start mothering him, then he starts getting used to this behavior and starts acting like a child. And then the more he acts like a child, the more that you feel like you have to mother him. And then it just continues on and gets worse. All right, let's get into the real meat of the video though, how to stop doing this, how to stop mothering our man. It doesn't feel good. We don't like doing it. So it's time to start shifting this. However, I of course have to mention that some grown men are just children in big boy bodies. And no matter what you do, that's just who they are. And sometimes the most loving and mature thing you can do is to walk away. Relationships are always a two-way street. This video is not titled How to Get Your Man to Stop Acting Like a Man Baby, although these tips might very much help with that. It's titled How to Stop Mothering Your Man. Anyway, let's get into it. Now, the first step is to just take a week or so, if you feel like you really engage in this mothering behavior, to just kind of take a week and observe. Where are the situations? What is coming up for you? What behaviors and actions are happening when you start to mother your man? How does this show up and how often does it show up? And don't come at this from a judgmental place, just an observant place. Don't judge yourself or judge him. Just observe, just notice. What are the things you're doing? What are the things you're saying that put you in that mothering position? The point is just bringing attention to them so we know where we might need to shift. The next thing you need to do is to lean back a little bit in your relationship. And you might have heard this term lean back a lot when it comes to feminine energy in relationships, and that's because it's very important. But let's talk about what it actually means. Leaning back in its simplest form means focusing more on you and less on him, not in a cold or rude way, way, not in a way to punish him, because then essentially you're still acting like his mother. Leaning back is not just about straight up ignoring him, but just focus on living your best life. Go do the hobbies you enjoy. Go hang out with your friends. Tend more to your life, your peace, your well-being, your joy. Again, don't be cold, still be loving, but lean back. Give the relationship more space. Give yourself more space. Creating this space allows him the space to step up. Think about the beginning of your relationship. Before your lives were so intertwined. He did his own thing sometimes, you did your own thing sometimes. You weren't trying to control him. And some of that distance actually created more romance and passion. And when you guys had that space, he felt like he had more of that space to kind of pull you in closer to him. When you mother him, you kind of smother him so that he can't do that. You take over that space for yourself. So lean back, let go of that feeling like you need to control. Accept what is right now and focus on yourself. Stop pushing your energy onto him. Use that energy to nurture yourself. So next, and this is one of the harder ones, I will admit, but this is crucial, you have to let him do him. Here's what I mean. Let's say it's the morning and your partner has to catch a flight for a work trip that he's going on, and you start to notice that he's kind of running a little bit late. You think that there's a possibility he might miss his flight. Let him miss it. Don't keep reminding him, honey, you need to go. You need to be leaving in 10 minutes. Did you pack this? Did you pack that? Come on, you're gonna be late. Let him manage it. Now again, not in a mean or resentful or bitter way. You have to come at this with the energy of he is a capable man. He is an adult. And if for some reason he does miss it, he'll manage. He'll figure it out. It's not a big deal. Or you constantly reminding him to pick up his dry cleaning. So what? So what if he doesn't pick up his dry cleaning? What's the worst thing that's gonna happen? He'll have no clothes? And then you know what? He'll figure it out. He'll manage. The little things like this that aren't life or death, let them go. Stop giving them so much attention. Let him handle it. Sure, he might make some mistakes and he might have to deal with the consequences of his actions, but that's just what being an adult is. Your job is not to save him. I'm not saying like if you guys are on a walk together and he's about to cross the street, but you see a car coming that's gonna hit him, that you just need to stay silent because, oh, I'm leaning back. That's his journey, not mine. No, obviously not. But a lot of this mothering activity that we partake in is us nagging him or pushing him about little things that aren't really that important. And when we nag and push about little things constantly, when we do need to communicate with him about something that's really important, he might not know the difference between that or you reminding him of his haircut. I'm just saying that he's gonna start to tune you out. So for the little things, you have to take a step back and be like, so what? Let him handle it. Let him make some mistakes. Let him fail sometimes. Failure is not always a bad thing, and that doesn't make him a bad man. Let him deal with his own actions and figure things out for himself without intervening. He's probably more capable than you think. Here's the thing, is that people learn and grow by doing. And sometimes that means making mistakes. Let me give you an example. Like in our house, Cole is in charge of taking the trash out and then taking the trash can to the street so that it can get dumped by the trash man. I feel like that's a common man responsibility in a household. Well, when we moved into our last place, which was our first real like house that we lived in, where we actually had to take the trash out to the street instead of just bringing the trash to like the apartment community dumpster. When we moved in there, I noticed that I was always reminding him about, oh, tomorrow's trash day, you need to bring the trash to the sidewalk, even though it wasn't my job. So then I was just like, so what? And I decided to stop thinking about it and to stop reminding him about it. It just wasn't my responsibility. Well, next time the trash came, he missed the trash pickup. He forgot to bring the bin to the sidewalk. He was a little annoyed, not at me, but at himself for missing the trash pickup, because then our trash can is full and it's just annoying. Then a few weeks later, he missed it again, and this time he was really annoyed at himself. But you know what happened after that? He never missed another trash pickup. I became completely oblivious to when the trash was getting taken away, and he completely dealt with it. He handled it. I leaned back and I just chose not to put my energy into that. And sure, he made one or two little mistakes that literally don't matter in the grand scheme of life, but then he became super responsible about it. You know, it's funny, I posted a TikTok several months ago about this topic, about mothering our man and all that stuff, and it was quite popular and had a lot of comments, and there was this one comment that stood out to me, and it was kind of funny. And it was this woman who just commented, "Girls, all you have to do is be lazy, LOL." And in my head, I was like, you know what? She's not entirely wrong. Don't just be a lazy person, but be, quote, lazy about his stuff. This basically gives him the space to step up and do it himself. When it comes to these little things that aren't make or break, relax, lean back, don't take over. Let him manage. Trust that he can manage. If you want to stop mothering him and get out of this dynamic, then allow him to be his own person. Allow him to figure things out for himself. You do not need to save the day. And I get it, you love him, but sometimes the most loving thing you can do is leaning back and start trusting him more. And you know what, actually, before I move on to the next point, I just want to mention that you can also do this with things that aren't just his things, but also like your things that you're doing together. So like, let me give you a personal example. Let's take the catching a flight example. Let's say that you are, traveling by plane to go on vacation. I noticed this with myself several years ago when we would travel. I noticed that I was the one who was managing everything. I was the one telling him what time we needed to be ready to go in the morning, making sure he had like the necessities packed, booking the Uber to the airport, and then kind of like navigating us through the airport into our gate and all that stuff. And I just realized, like, why am I doing this? I hated doing that and I didn't want to be that person. So I stopped, and the next time we traveled, I leaned back. When he asked what time we needed to go, I was just like, oh, I don't know. I didn't arrange the Uber. I didn't remind him of any things that he should probably bring. And I just decided to look to him for that. And once I gave him the space to do that, he did that easily. All I had to do was lean back. I just thought to myself, like, what's the worst that's gonna happen? We miss a flight and then we have to take a later flight out that day. Like, what's the big deal? And that TikTok comment was sort of right. I just became lazy about it. Now, moving on though, very much along these same lines, remember that your man is his own person and he will do things in his own way. And just because it's different to yours, it doesn't make it wrong. And just because you guys are now in a deeply committed relationship, it doesn't mean that he has to conform to do everything the way that you specifically do it. I remember one time my husband was cooking dinner, or maybe we were cooking together, I don't remember, but he was starting on cooking something. And I remember interrupting him and be like, oh no, you have to do it this way. And then I started thinking in my head, I was like, actually, he doesn't have to do it that way. That's just the way that I do it and the way that I think is best. If I was cooking and he was like, no, that's wrong, you have to do it the way that I do it, then I would be like, okay, weirdo. As individual people, we all do things in our own ways, from the way that we do our laundry, to washing our dishes, to feeding the dogs, or cutting up the strawberries, or working and being productive. For example, there are some people that do things weeks in advance, and then there's the other half of the population that waits until the very last minute. And for some reason, they usually end up marrying each other. I'm the person who likes to do things in advance, and my husband likes to do things last minute. And so I would find myself nagging him and reminding him about things that need to get done. But once I stopped doing that, I realized it always gets done on time. It's just done more on his schedule than mine. That's just who he is as a person, and you know what? It works for him. When we travel, he packs 30 minutes before we go, and I realized that there's nothing inherently wrong with this. It's just not the way that I like to do it. He's responsible, he gets stuff done, he just does things in his own way. Let him be who he is. Again, lean back and stop trying to micromanage him, especially over things that don't really matter. Now, if you just really don't like the way that he loads the dishwasher, that's okay, but don't yell at him for doing it wrong. Just tell him that you love him and appreciate him, but would you mind doing it this way? Or if you think that your partner is doing something different than what you think is right, like if you tell your partner to pick something up from the store and he comes back with something else, don't immediately come at him like judging him and yelling at him. Maybe he actually thought it out. Maybe there's actually a good reason for it. Perhaps the thing that he got is actually better than the thing that you wanted him to get. What I'm saying is, when things like that happen, communicate with the desire to understand rather than immediately condemn. You have to remember that you guys are on the same team and you can't communicate like you are opponents. Now, the next tip is you also have to be appreciative of what he does do. And I know this can be really hard, especially if you've been stuck in that mothering dynamic for a while and you feel like you now always have to nag him of things all the time. And so this can be hard to be appreciative of the things that he does do, because there's a little bit of like bitterness and resentment that you feel. I get that. but you have to let it go and give it a fresh start. You just do. If you want to repair the dynamic, you have to focus on moving forward. Again, you don't always need to repair the dynamic. Like if he's a loser, you can move on. But if you know that he's not and that you've gotten stuck in this cycle because more of like your behavior and you're mothering him all the time, etc., like I've said numerous times, lean back and then appreciate the little things that he is doing. Again, not like a child, like, oh, thanks, honey, you're such a good boy, here's your lollipop. No, like his partner, like his lover. Thanks, baby, I appreciate that, and give him a kiss. That's simple. Now, moving on, if you want to stop mothering him, you also have to stop giving him unsolicited advice all the time and stop trying to solve his problems. That doesn't mean you can't ever give him advice. I'm just saying like the constant advice of like, you should do this, you should do that. You don't need to solve his problems. When he comes to you talking about a problem or like a stress at work, for example, listen, and then instead of telling him what to do, say something like, that sounds stressful. I know you'll figure it out. You always do. If he asks you your thoughts, that's fine. Give him your thoughts, but just don't bombard him with your opinions and quote advice all the time. This tends to just make him feel inadequate and like you don't trust him. But if he does come to you with his problems too much, like he's always coming to talk to you and always hoping that you are going to like give him a solution of some sort or save the day in some way, then that's not good and you have to change that. So don't try to fix his problems. Tell him you love him and you trust him to figure it out and like, don't worry, you got it, I believe in you, whatever. Give him the commentary of like being a supportive partner and like, you can do this, versus just straight out giving him a solution. You have to break that connection that you are the one who just solves all his problems. Now, next, if you want to stop acting like his mother, then you have to stop saying that he is your child. Some women will do this where they will say that their man is like their child. Or if a woman has like 2 kids already, they'll say that their husband is their 3rd child. Even if it might feel like that, stop saying it. Stop saying it to him. Stop saying it to your friends. Stop saying it to yourself. Your words are very powerful. And if you want to change that dynamic, you have to stop bringing attention to what you no longer want. You have to get rid of that energy. When you say over and over again that he is your child, even if it's just from like a joking, sarcastic kind of place, all you're doing is prolonging and solidifying that which you do not want. Also, sometimes the only reason that we start to get overbearing and mothering is because there's just not a clear delineation of responsibilities. So this tip is not as relevant if you don't live together. If it's not clearly defined in the household, like who is in charge of what, who is responsible for what, then it can start to get a little confusing and muddy, and then it just kind of ends up you sort of managing everything. Communicate and understand what are his responsibilities and what are yours, and agree to them. Just get on the same page. This just makes it so much easier to be like, okay, where can I lean back? And where are the areas of life where I need to step up? And then let him do those things that he's responsible for his way. Like in our relationship, my husband handles more of the typical manly tasks, like more of the outdoor work. If there's any sort of like electrical thing that needs fixing, or changing the light bulbs, or changing the air filter for the house, or the whole house water filter we have, the filter for that. I do more of the things like the cooking or the organizing or the tidying or the vacuuming. I really like vacuuming. Or just general like managing the dogs, although he cleans up the vomit from the dog, so that's nice. It just makes things easier. Again, you guys are on the same team. Now, if you're someone who's naturally very nurturing and you love it, it makes you happy. Again, nurturing your partner is not bad, but you just don't want to completely overdo it. And so it's helpful to find another outlet to put your nurturing energy so it's not all just like 100% completely on him. Nurture your pets, nurture your home, nurture yourself, nurture your friends. If you have kids, nurture your kids, nurture your friends' kids, nurture your garden, your community, your hobbies. I know the question is how much nurturing for your partner is too much, and that's a hard question to answer because the answer is it depends. But if you're nurturing him so much that you're putting his needs on a pedestal and tiring yourself out and not giving yourself what you need, well, then you've definitely crossed a line there. And also, is there still space in the relationship? Is he still his own person without you? Those are some good questions to ask. Now, just to recap though, a lot of this does go back to just leaning back and letting go of control. It might feel uncomfortable at first, but as you get into this rhythm and he has more space to step up, it should start to feel easier and easier, and it should start to feel good. So if you like this video, you're probably also gonna like this video when he's not stepping up, how to inspire masculine energy in your man. There's a lot of good tips in there, and we talk a lot about that like feminine and masculine energy dynamic. As always, share your thoughts in the comments below. I love to hear them. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments too. I'll try to answer them. But besides that, I will see you over there in this video. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.